new to me is called Hammock. And the piece I'm going to be listening to is entitled Breathturn. I just have a couple sentences to read about it. Hammock is an American ambient post-rock duo formed in Nashville, Tennessee in 2005 by Mark Bird and Andrew Thompson. Nashville, Tennessee. Well, neighbors, I guess. Hammock have released 10 albums and 5 EPs since 2005, mostly on their own label, Hammock Music, and have garnered favorable reviews from critics, including Pitchfork and AllMusic. Well, maybe I should look them up here and say, hey. And I gotta stop for a minute because those sounds at the beginning took me through a whole gamut of emotions right away, mostly because of things I associate with the sound. First, it sounded like, okay, yeah, ambient music fits it. And then it started sounding more like, I don't know, a door creaking. And then it morphed a bit and suddenly it felt like wooden pencils rolling across the floor. And there was a moment there where I felt myself actually tense because, well, with a toddler in the house, if you hear sounds like that, you better jump. And of course, I was able to kind of bring myself back into it and recognize that this is all about shaping and gradually transitioning, coloring the sound, and the process of the sound becoming starting with one sonic experience and gliding into the next. And it's a nice way to start the piece, actually. I'm going to start it again, and I will attempt not to tense in that moment when it sounds like toddler's up to no good. gotta stop this. All right. This is it's obviously very much synthesized music, but it's very nicely done. Um, it doesn't feel shallow or incomplete as a musical entity, as something that we'd call music to listen to. It feels very well balanced, very filled out, and nicely colored, shaped, all of that. Now, what I'm noticing about the shape of it, let's talk about this for a minute, because I was listening to this, I was noticing that the main contour is not coming from the upper voices. You know, very often when we listen to music, our ears are drawn to the highest pitch voices, instruments most easily. Just think of how many songs you know where you can sing the melody, but there is no way on earth that you could sing the bass line if your life depended on it. You just, unless you have practiced and perhaps even studied, for some of us who don't come by it really naturally, the ability to focus on inner voices and lower voices, we are naturally drawn towards the top layer. And it's kind of like, you know, we step out our door, we go for a walk, we go for a drive, we go wherever. What do we see? We see the top layer, the surface of things, right? We see the surface of the ground. We see the surface of the buildings. We don't see what's underneath, what's holding it up, what lays below that surface, unless perhaps we are in a field that takes us into those deeper parts of the world around us. This piece of music, all those upper voices are pretty static. Yes, they have a bit of texture. They have nice tonal colors and shades and blends mixed throughout. But as far as having an actual shape, a contour that we might sing, there really isn't one, is there? But this is not a shapeless piece of music, and it is not a piece of music without some kind of contour. The contour immediately starts underneath in the bass line, and the bass line starts shaping things right away from the beginning. And it continues creating a sort of bottom shape to the entire piece of music, which makes it feel much more, shall we say, musical than simply a wash of different sounds flowing one after the other. And I was trying to think as I was listening to this portion and recognizing what's happening. How would I describe this? How would I visualize it for somebody? Well, maybe it's kind of like this. Imagine a graph or an outline of the ocean floor and the heights and depths and shape of it by whatever technological means is done. There you can see it. Imagine that you are the one making use of that technology, whether it's sonar or some other imaging technique, whatever there is. Think about you being the person handling the equipment and watching it take shape on the screen in front of you, probably a screen, right? And now imagine that you are the one doing that, but you are actually underwater in, a pod, a capsule, something. And so you can see around you and you can see the the water and the sea life flowing around you. So it's kind of like you are graphing the ocean floor, and at the same time you're experiencing the watery world around you as it comes in its rather shapeless form with, some creatures swimming by. But again, it's not really the shape, and it's not really the it's just your surroundings. That is how I would describe somebody who'd never heard this type of music, what it was like to listen to it. So now let's go on. And I suspect, being that this is ambient music, probably the same thing is going to happen throughout. And I'll talk about why at the end. But let's just keep our ears tuned to that bass line and notice this contour being shaped, this being drawn out for us, this shape being outlined underneath all the colorations and shadings and transitions that are happening above it. Very reflective guitar there. Almost like an absent-minded improv. I was wrong. This is not the bass. This is the upper eye line. I was dead wrong, wasn't I? That last half was not shaped by the bass. The bass was still present. You can still pick it out in places. But suddenly the focus was on the upper side of things. What a great, because even a great study in how one is compared to the other. And it's really nice that it goes together so nicely and one follows the other so nicely. Isn't it interesting to notice that the second half, the one with the upper shape, where the focus is on the upper side of things, feels a little bit more, should we say, authoritative? I'm not sure that's quite the right word. A little bit more, how do I even want to express this? This is, well, let's just say this. Since I described the first half, like, looking at the ocean floor and the shape of the ocean floor, let's just say that the second half, really, if you're trying to describe it in visual terms, it's as if you are viewing the world from above, perhaps from a high point, a mountain peak or something, and you're looking at the shapes of the valley and the other mountain ranges around you, perhaps, or perhaps even flying above it, right? But it is certainly a view from above rather than a view from underneath. Well, okay, just for fun, let's go back and listen to the beginning, since I had no idea this was coming up, right? So let's notice how this bass is introduced and how we are drawn in to this baseline experience in the first half, because it's kind of fun to notice, isn't it? Right, this is all this textural stuff happening here. And there's a good reason for that, actually, because how do you introduce something when you don't want to get the ear focused on upper pitches, melodic shapes? Well, it's got to be something textural that kind of sets the mood, but doesn't send us looking the wrong direction. So this is actually a really great choice, practically speaking, if you're going to open a piece like this. And we start to hear the wash of colors coming in. Pastels. A little bit hazy. You hear a few little just off in the distance, but not enough to really catch your ears. This warm sound. The bass becomes more active, and but by that point we've been drawn into it by the fact that all of these colors and shapes and textures are happening, flowing together, gliding one into the other, morphing, changing, shaping. But the one identifiable, singable pitch line is that bass line, isn't it? Bum, bum. Let's see. It's a bum, 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 bum. And it's not really something we'd call a melody. It's clearly a bass line, but it is the shape, the outline. We could say that it's a piece of artwork taking shape, which has a lot of, as I said, pastel colors, hazy, foggy, misty stuff happening. And then there is a good, strong, thick, colored line outlining the lower edge of the image on the canvas. But above it, it's still kind of, you know, it fades into the raw canvas quite indistinctly, doesn't it? So that was an interesting experience and contrast, one half to the other, wasn't it? I said, this is clearly what the introduction said about it. Ambient music. Ambient meaning it's meant to be something that goes in the background, sets an ambience, a mood, in a space, in a time, but not something we'd actually listen to as something to sing along with. And so it makes no effort to be singable. It also makes no effort to be something that has some sort of motif that is developed in a complex, intellectual, artistic way, like, you know, some piece of Rachmaninoff or Beethoven or something like that, where it's not meant to sing along with. It's not a symphony either. It's not a ballet. It's simply ambient music. But I have to say, it's really lovely ambient music, isn't it? As I said, it has this shape and color and richness to it, which makes me feel comfortable hearing it. And actually, this is a criticism I have of a lot of ambient music that I've heard. It's either boring, and I start to wish that it would just shut up and go away because it invades my world. Let's say I'm in a dentist's office or something, and they have ambient music in the background, and okay, it's okay for the first few minutes, but if I'm sitting there waiting for a while, at some point, I might start to wish, would that just go away, please? On the other hand, some ambient music can be so spacey, so undirected, so I guess spacey is the best word, meaning without a gravitational point of reference having to do with the harmonic design of it. And this has a good, comfortable harmonic design for ambient music. It's neither too much to invade me and my conscious awareness enough that I wish for it to go away, as long as it's not too loud. Neither is it too undirected and, spaced out feeling to be also kind of a nuisance, where I start searching with my subconscious musician's ear to find, why doesn't that music resolve? Why doesn't it settle? It's just, here, there. It's like watching, I don't know, watching chickens wander around a yard. So my compliments to Hammock. They did a fine job of this in this piece of music, and I enjoyed listening to it in an attentive, focused way, which is really not the way ambient music is intended to be listened to for the most part. There was enough musical depth and content for me to actually enjoy listening to it in a focused way. At the same time, I could imagine myself being comfortable with it in the background. Maybe not for 5 hours, but, some time. So that was my first exposure to Hammock. As I said, perhaps I should look them up and say hey. And the piece is Breathturn. I'll see you soon.